You're in the majors right now. You were 4 years ago. So this is your second trip back. And in that interim, those 4 years were pretty crazy, man. So I don't want to tell your story. Can you give the 3-4 people here that don't know? I think my 4-year-old doesn't know this yet. Can you just tell my son Owen what you've been up to? What happened those 4 years?
First and foremost, I want to thank each and every one of you for coming out tonight. And I want to say to each and every one of you that Jesus loves you. So, where do I start? 4 years ago, I was in the big leagues, and I apologize in advance that if my emotions get the best of me, they tend to do that sometimes. I was in the big leagues 4 years ago. Thought my career was going up and up. Got the pleasure to play with this guy, and I started, I claim myself a Christian, but I don't think I really truly walked with God. Like kind of Brian, I can relate to Brian, kind of check the boxes in a sense, and really got tested. I unfortunately had Tommy John surgery at the end of 2015. And that was kind of, the first kind of step in my rehab process. And as I was coming back from that in 2016, as I was a week away from completing my rehab assignment before I got to the big leagues, I was throwing just a pitch and shattered my arm in half, broke the bone straight through. And
do we have the pictures of that? I'm sorry to interrupt you, but do we have a picture of, I don't know how familiar you are with elbows, folks, but they're not supposed to look like that. Wow. That's pretty messed up, man. And that's it now, right?
Yeah, as you can see, they kind of put me back together, kind of like Humpty Dumpty. And when Dr. Andrews first saw my x-ray, he thought I got in a car crash, because doing that to your arm isn't normal. It's not supposed to happen. So I was in a dark place for a long time. I remember, it's hard to go back to that moment because you try not to think about it, but when I first broke my arm, I questioned why God, why did this happen to me? It was really hard. I screamed it at the top of my lungs. Why God? Why did this happen to me? Why would someone let this happen to me? And I was in a very dark place for a long time, as some of you guys might be able to relate. And I thought I could do everything on my own. I thought I could do my rehab on my own. I said, I don't want anything to do with God. He broke my arm. And like I said, I was in a dark place for a long time. Then I found it within myself, my wife, my family. We started to, I let go. I started to let go. I said, I can't do this anymore by myself. We started getting in the Word, started reading the daily devotional every single day, and He started speaking to me. His words literally started speaking to me, and that's when things started to change. My outlook started to change. I started being more positive, and I started noticing that my rehab, things started to get better. I never thought that I would throw a baseball again. This was more just being a normal human being again. Guys like Johnny Venters, who's here tonight, had 3.5 Tommy John surgeries. He's given me more inspiration to make it back. He's just a pure example of what God can do for you. So as I'm making this comeback journey, I started throwing a baseball again. Couldn't tell you if it was going to go positive or not. And I started believing each and every day that God had a plan for me. No matter if I threw in the big leagues, if I threw a pitch again, it didn't matter. I started believing that God had a plan for me. And I started trusting in that plan. And I started taking it one day at a time, literally one day at a time. So I encourage each and every one of you out there, if you're struggling through something, open up that book and start getting in the Word. It's amazing how much He can talk to you. And so as I started taking this journey day by day, the days started turning into weeks, the weeks started turning into months. The next thing you know, I'm off the mountain again. I got to start pitching again. Like I said, every day was a blessing. I never took throwing a baseball again for granted. You know, as sometimes you kind of can go through the motions and you start taking things for granted. So next thing you know, I get a chance to go to big league camp, and as you guys have seen, obviously the comeback story was complete in Atlanta, and like I said, I am more grateful for each and every day now going through this process.
Amazing, man. Amazing.